Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And in this video, I'm going to do a trade recap, trade review type of video, going over some of the trades that we took today in the Discord chat room, some of the trades that I personally took, and basically my thought process behind them, why I entered, what I was looking out for. But before we begin, if you aren't following my Instagram already, the link for this will be in the description below. Definitely worth a follow. I post trading recaps like this on a daily basis. So let's get right into the Discord and go over the first trade and my thought process behind it. So every morning I post a pre-market plan going over some of the supply and demand levels that I'm looking out for, the type of trades that I'm looking, and what basically is ready to trigger for us to make a nice trade off of. So the first thing I went over was Apple, which I'm going to get into. Then we had Microsoft, but the first thing I want to go in detail with is the S&P 500, which we had a 4-hour demand at 3421, and then a little bit above it we had a 3-hour demand at 3428. So these were very important levels for bulls to defend today. Higher time frame price supply and demand zones usually act like magnets, and especially when we have a clean balanced period is what really interests me, because the market was ripping past all-time highs today, and we needed to pull back a little bit, pick up more orders for another leg higher. We can't just continue to go straight up, straight up, straight up without a healthy pullback to pick up more orders inside of a demand zone. So we had the 4-hour and the 3-hour zone that I was waiting for price to pull back into. Now, if you go to an intraday chart, because I use a 5 and 15 minute when I'm day trading, and I use the higher time frames for my supply and demand zones, we opened up and we basically moved down into this 3-hour demand zone. And if we don't know what happens next to price, it looks like we were consolidating here, balancing out. Sellers weren't taking us down. Buyers really weren't bouncing us. So I took a small trade here, at 3431 to the long side out of 3-hour demand, risking 3428. So it was a 3-point risk, very, very tight risk. There was nothing, crazy. You could take this trade all day long as as your risk is tight. We were bouncing out of demand, and I thought we were going to continue higher, and I thought this pullback was going to be enough. So I put this in the group chat. I said I'm trying long at 3431. My stop was at 3428, 3-point risk. I said if we break the low, I'm going to flip biases and take short targeting 3421. Keep in mind, 3421 was that 4-hour supplies or demand zone, which really was like the magnet today for price, because that is a higher time frame, and it was a very clean zone from the balancing out period, which basically covered up all of price yesterday on Monday. So that was what I was really looking out for. I took this long, and I didn't like the action. There was tons of aggressive buying coming through. So, on the time and sales, I saw a lot of traders with heavy size. As you can see here, at 3430, I put in the group chat. Let me move this down over here. There was an aggressive buyer with 254 lots that hit the market on the ask side. So he's an aggressive buyer. And I really wanted to see price hold above it and make a move higher. But basically he got absorbed, and, price didn't really react. We just continued to move sideways. And then eventually I got stopped out of this trade. And then as soon as that happened, I flipped to the short side. So as soon as I exited my short, I took this, or as soon as I exited my long, I took this short. Yes, we are in demand, but this demand zone was not proving to me that we were going to start bouncing, as it was very weak reaction from the buyers. So I took this short once we broke below 3428, targeting that 4-hour demand zone below. We then popped. I really didn't get scared because my stop loss was at 3433, above the making a higher high. And then we continued to come down, and we actually missed this 4-hour demand zone by maybe 2 or 3 ticks, which is kind of upsetting. So when I seen that, we missed it by a couple of ticks. This was also at the time, again, more aggressive buyers were stepping in. Every time that we were coming down, right here where my cursor's at, then the next time we came down, then the next time after that, there was heavy aggressive size coming in and basically hitting the ask. So that gave me a little bit of a red flag in my mind, saying that, we're struggling, we're breaking the lows, but every time we break the lows, we're bouncing higher. And then come down and test the lows again and break higher. So once I saw that for the second time, red flag went off in my head, and I was like, I have to be careful with my short position. This thing could easily reverse. We have aggressive buyers, and the stock really isn't moving down from any sellers, because we were trading in such a tight range today. So I saw that, and I said, I can't hold above. I'm leaning more towards the short side below 3428. And then I said ES was not dropping as much as I'd like to. It could very well bounce since having a hard time moving down with no follow through below the lows. So at the time this happened was 10:36 a.m., which is right here where my cursor's at, is when we had a hard time moving lower. Keep in mind now, this is at the same time, which I'm going to go into, was Apple and Microsoft was looking good to the long side. So this ES trade was a very, very small win for me today. It was nothing crazy. Took a loss on the long side. It came down, and then took a very small win, like a 3 or 4 point win. If you're looking at the micro price, it was a very small win. Nothing crazy on this. This was kind of, I looked at it as a wash. But my biggest winners were Apple today. And I'm gonna break that down right now. Okay, so now going back to the pre-market plan, we had Apple, which is going to split, I think, on Friday or early next week. So I really wanted the strength to continue. And we created a nice 2-hour demand zone at $493. And inside that zone, we had another demand zone just in case that did fail. So keep in mind with the S&P, the Apple trade triggered while I was being cautious to the short side on the S&P, and it looked like we were ready to bounce. This was at the time Apple was bouncing off of this 2-hour demand zone, and your entry could be really anywhere where buyers are stepping in. As soon as we made this high or low, this could have been an entry point for you. This is actually where I did enter. Once I saw this red basing candle right here, followed by a nice move to the upside, I did take this long here, and I did have to hold for this pullback right here where my cursor's at. But like I said, this is at the time that the S&P was selling off, and I was very confident that we were going to bounce. So when I had double confirmation like that with this demand holding and the S&P bouncing, I did take this long, and it did look good to the upside. And I was targeting this supply zone up here, which was the origin from this move down this morning. And I took profits. I put this actually in the Discord room today. My commentary, this is before it was looking good, and this is actually at the point where I entered. So I entered at $494.50. And the contracts, I think, were at like $7.70. And my last scale out was at like $9.20. So what I do is, the stock moved up. I scaled out half position, and then I rode the remainder up into the supply zone. Now, keep in mind, this was also while the NASDAQ, we had a nice 3-hour supply zone, which we were rallying into. And we eventually, pull this up here, did rally into the supply zone. And this is at the time Apple was in that supply zone. So that would have been another double confirmation for you to exit your trade and take some profits. So you just got to line different things up. When things align, that's when you take the trade. That's when you take the trade off the table. Now, at the same time, I was entering Apple, which I didn't take this trade myself because I was too busy monitoring Apple. We had Microsoft. So Microsoft had a supply zone at 214.80, and this was looking good because we were basing out inside of supply the same time Apple was in demand, same time the S&P was coming out of demand. We were basing out inside supply, and basically, I said this before, but when you base out inside of the supply, it's a bullish sign because basically buyers are agreeing on price and the sellers aren't that strong inside that supply zone. So it's just a bullish sign once we start consolidating or balancing out or trading sideways inside of a supply zone. Also, for the technical traders, we were kind of flagging inside of this supply. So this would have been a good entry right here. I did put this in the room today, and this did rip right into perfectly a resistance zone. So if I pull up a chart, let me turn off extended hours. So there's not too much noise with the thing. We have resistance right here at the 216.40 area. There's really nothing stopping us from breaking all-time highs. And in fact, we actually are above all-time highs in after hours today. So, above this supply, there was nothing really stopping us. And that's exactly what happened today. You could take it long out of speculation that all-time highs are going to break. And this was another good trade that I know a lot of people did take in the room today. So besides Apple, Microsoft, and the S&P, those were the 3 trades that I did focus on. I did put in the room today. They were on high alert. They were really the only things crazy moving, besides Facebook. Facebook was an animal today. And, this was creating demand zones like crazy. So this balancing out period right here could have been another entry for you to get long at a speculation that was, demand forming for another leg higher. So there's just opportunities all day long in the market. Your goal as a trader is to find them. Your goal as a trader is to not, trade the market. The goal is to trade your own setups and everything that makes sense to you, that what you have used in the past before, that gives you your edge. If you're looking for setups and nothing's forming and you're taking trades blindly out of FOMO or just out of boredom, that's not a good idea. You have to trade your setups. Do not trade the market. Trade what you are comfortable with and what you know works for yourself.